Beneath the golden haze of the Giza Plateau, where the horizon hums with the echo of eternity, a colossal figure rests, half lion, half human, and all mystery. The Great Sphinx of Giza gazes eastward toward the rising sun, its eyes fixed on something far beyond time. It has witnessed the birth and fall of empires, the shifting of stars, and the slow drift of human memory. Yet, after thousands of years, one question still lingers in the silence around it. What secret is it guarding? The Sphinx is not merely carved stone, it is encoded knowledge. Every contour, every angle, every erosion mark whispers of an origin older than Egypt itself. Mainstream historians claim it was built around 2500 BCE under the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. But what if that's only the surface of a much deeper truth? What if the Sphinx is not a monument of Egypt, but a monument to something before Egypt, a remnant of an age long erased from our history? Legends have called it the keeper of secrets, the voice of silence, and even the eye of the sun. Ancient priests believed it stood as the eternal guardian of sacred wisdom buried beneath its paws. Some said that those who could decipher its code would uncover the lost records of the gods, knowledge capable of bridging heaven and earth. Others believed that the Sphinx itself is a message, a cipher written in stone, preserving the blueprint of human origins. When the first rays of dawn strike its face, the Sphinx comes alive in light. Its gaze aligns perfectly with the path of the sun, as though it were not simply looking at the dawn, but remembering it. Beneath its weathered surface lie signs of craftsmanship so refined that even today, engineers puzzle over how it was carved from a single mass of limestone with such symmetry and purpose. Some geologists claim the body bears the marks of water erosion, proof, perhaps, that it was shaped not in the dry heat of the Sahara, but in a distant epoch when rains still blessed the land. The Sphinx seems to defy both time and explanation. It is the enigma at the heart of Egypt, a being that bridges animal and man, earth and sky, silence and revelation. It is as if the ancient builders left it behind as a message for the future, a cosmic riddle encoded in stone. And so, we begin our journey, not with what Egyptologists believe, but with what the stones themselves whisper. For buried beneath the sands of Giza lies not only the story of a monument, but the story of civilization itself. Who carved the face that looks out over the desert? What mind first imagined this fusion of lion and man, strength and intellect, as the guardian of an unseen truth? Perhaps, to understand the Sphinx, we must learn to see as it sees, not with the eyes of history, but with the eyes of eternity. Because the question is no longer when the Sphinx was built, but why. And when we finally uncover that answer, will we still recognize the world we thought we knew? What if the Sphinx isn't just watching the horizon, but waiting for something or someone to return? The wind over Giza is ancient. It carries whispers older than dynasties, fragments of songs, chants, and languages long forgotten. And in that wind, there is a question that has haunted scholars and mystics alike. Who built the Great Sphinx? The official story, written neatly in the books of Egyptology, credits Pharaoh Khafre of the 4th dynasty, around 2500 BCE. They say the Sphinx is his likeness, a royal portrait guarding the causeway to his pyramid. It's a comforting answer, one that fits the chronology of Egypt's golden age. But when one steps closer, when one looks beyond the polished explanations, the stone begins to tell a different tale. Even among Egyptologists, there is doubt. The Sphinx does not bear a perfect resemblance to Khafre. Its face, though eroded, seems older, softer, more enigmatic. Some argue that the head was recarved, that an even older image once existed there, perhaps of a lion, facing the eternal sunrise. If true, it would mean the Sphinx predates Khafre's reign by thousands of years. Beneath the monuments of Giza lies a deeper layer of time, what ancient texts called Zep Tepi, the first time, the mythical era when gods walked among men. The priests of Heliopolis spoke of this period as the dawn of civilization, when divine knowledge was first bestowed upon humanity. According to them, the Sphinx was not a tomb decoration, but a sacred marker, a witness to the beginning of the world. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing 2,000 years ago, heard similar whispers from the Egyptian priests. They told him of rulers who reigned before the pharaohs, kings whose names had been erased because their origin was not of this earth. Could the Sphinx be the last surviving memory of that forgotten age? Modern researchers have noticed something strange about the Sphinx's proportions. Its head is too small for its body, as though the face we see today replaced an older one, perhaps that of a lion. This idea is not merely artistic speculation. Geological studies support it. The erosion on the Sphinx's body runs vertically, as if carved by rainfall that hasn't touched this plateau for more than 10,000 years. If these marks are natural, then the Sphinx was already standing long before the Sahara became a desert. This discovery changes everything. It suggests that the Sphinx could date back to a time when fertile plains covered the region, perhaps before the end of the last ice age. That means before Egypt, before written history, before the rise of the known world. Some theorists even link it to the lost civilizations mentioned in ancient texts, to Atlantis, or to a prehistoric culture wiped out by global floods. What if those who built the Sphinx were the remnants of a forgotten age, preserving their wisdom in stone, knowing the sands would one day swallow their story? The Sphinx, then, may not be an Egyptian creation at all, but a legacy inherited, a relic so old that later pharaohs could only honor it, not comprehend it. Ancient records mention the dream stele, placed between its paws by Pharaoh Thutmose IV, who claimed the Sphinx spoke to him in his sleep. It promised him kingship if he cleared the sand from its body, as if the monument itself was conscious of its guardianship, calling out to those worthy to remember. Every civilization builds monuments, but only a few leave mysteries. The Sphinx seems to stand at the threshold of both part temple, part riddle. Its builders, whoever they were, worked not just with stone but with an understanding of geometry, astronomy, and proportion that still defies the tools known to its supposed era. Could an older, now vanished civilization have passed that knowledge to the Egyptians? A civilization whose ruins lie buried not in sand, but in myth? If so, the Sphinx may not mark the beginning of Egyptian history, but its inheritance from something far greater. And if the Sphinx was not born in Egypt's timeline, then what epoch does it belong to? Is it possible that the Sphinx is not the child of human hands at all, but the memory of a civilization the earth itself once knew? Beneath the vast paws of the Sphinx, where the desert hums with secrets, legends whisper of a chamber sealed since the dawn of time. They call it the Hall of Records, the eternal archive of a forgotten world. For centuries, mystics, explorers, and scholars have sought it, believing it holds the ultimate key to human origins, the record of where we came from, and perhaps, where we are meant to return. Ancient Egyptian texts never mention such a hall directly, yet hints appear between the lines of their sacred writings. The priests of Heliopolis spoke of a sanctuary beneath the lion, where divine knowledge was stored before the Great Flood. The emerald tablets of Thoth, those mysterious fragments said to contain the wisdom of Atlantis, describe hidden chambers under the Sphinx, where the stars are reflected in the stone. Were these poetic metaphors, or encrypted memories of real architecture buried beneath the sands? In the early 20th century, clairvoyant Edgar Cayce gave this legend new life. During his trance readings, he spoke of a great library buried between the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid, a repository of Atlantean records preserved by survivors of the last cataclysm. According to Cayce, it would be discovered when the time is right, when humanity is ready once again for its truth. At first, these ideas were dismissed as fantasy. But then, in the late 20th century, science began to catch up with legend. In 1991, a team of researchers led by geophysicist Thomas DeBakey and Egyptologist John Anthony West conducted seismic surveys around the Sphinx. What they found stunned the world. Beneath the monument's paws and along its flanks lay anomalous cavities, large rectangular voids deep within the bedrock. The instruments could not reveal what was inside, but the shapes were unmistakably artificial. One cavity, roughly 9 meters deep, extended directly under the Sphinx's forepaws, precisely where the ancient accounts placed the hidden chamber. Egyptian authorities permitted limited exploration, but no full excavation followed. Officially, the voids were described as natural fissures. Unofficially, whispers spread that what lay beneath the Sphinx could rewrite history. What could be hidden there? Some imagine vast archives etched on golden plates, an ancient science describing how spirit and matter were once unified. Others believe it holds artifacts of unknown craftsmanship, relics from a civilization that predated Egypt by millennia. More cautious minds suggest it might contain simple tombs or ritual chambers built during later dynasties. Yet the Sphinx guards its silence well. Every attempt to probe deeper seems to meet with strange coincidence: halted permits, shifting sands, or unexplained delays. It is as though the desert itself conspires to keep its secret untouched. Perhaps that is because the Hall of Records, if it exists, is not only a physical chamber but a spiritual threshold. The ancient Egyptians believed knowledge was not simply stored, it was guarded. Only those of pure intent could access it. Thoth, the god of wisdom, was said to have sealed the records with a living frequency, a vibration that responds not to tools but to consciousness. And what if that is the true code of the Sphinx? Not a door made of stone, but a resonance, waiting to be awakened by those who remember the old ways of seeing. The monument itself may be the key, its shape, its alignment, its proportions forming a living cipher that, when decoded, reveals more than a chamber. It reveals the truth about who we are. Imagine for a moment that the chamber beneath the Sphinx does exist, untouched for 12,000 years, holding within it not gold or treasure, but data, maps of the stars, the geometry of creation, the science of the soul. Such knowledge could connect the Sphinx to every sacred site across the planet, from the pyramids of Mexico to the megaliths of Peru, from the temples of Angkor to the forgotten cities beneath the sea. The Hall of Records, then, would not be just an Egyptian mystery, but the spinal memory of Earth itself. And perhaps that is why it remains sealed, because humanity has not yet learned to listen rather than dig. If the desert were to open its heart, and the Sphinx were to speak again, what truth would it tell, and are we truly ready to hear it? When dawn touches the Giza Plateau, the first golden light does not fall upon the pyramids. It falls upon the Sphinx. Its gaze faces due east, directly toward the rising sun, as if it were waiting for that moment since the beginning of time. To many, this is not coincidence but code, an alignment so deliberate that it transforms the Sphinx from sculpture into celestial instrument. For centuries, Egyptologists saw the Sphinx merely as a monument of royal power. Yet the ancient Egyptians did not separate architecture from the cosmos. To them, the heavens were not distant. They were the mirror of Earth. Every temple, every pyramid, every statue was placed with mathematical precision to reflect a higher order, the rhythm of the stars, the geometry of creation. The Sphinx, therefore, was not built on the desert. It was built within the universe. If we trace its gaze backward through time, something remarkable happens. Around 10,500 BCE, a date that corresponds to the end of the last ice age, the constellation of Leo rose exactly on the eastern horizon during the spring equinox. The lion of the sky greeted the lion of stone. Astronomers like Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock argue that this cannot be chance. The Sphinx, they claim, was aligned to the heavens of a forgotten epoch, a sky map carved in rock. In this ancient alignment, the three pyramids of Giza mirror the three stars of Orion's belt, while the Sphinx faces Leo. Together, they form a cosmic tableau, a message frozen in time, representing the eternal dialogue between heaven and earth. The ancients called this harmony as above, so below. To them, the alignment was not symbolic, it was sacred technology. By placing their monuments in resonance with celestial geometry, they believed they could connect with the divine order that governs all life. Such precision could not have been accidental. The builders understood the precession of the equinoxes, the slow 26,000-year wobble of the Earth's axis, long before modern astronomy rediscovered it. How could a civilization over 10,000 years ago know this cosmic cycle unless it inherited knowledge from an even older world? Perhaps one that measured time not in centuries, but in great years, epochs defined by the movement of the stars themselves. The Sphinx's body, the lion, represents the strength of the earth, while its human face symbolizes consciousness, intellect, and divine awareness. In the alignment with Leo, the message becomes clear: human awakening in harmony with cosmic power. It is the dawn of a new cycle, when earth and sky remember their unity. And the pyramids behind it, silent sentinels of geometry, may be more than royal tombs. They could be star markers, precisely calibrated to the belt of Orion, the celestial home of Osiris, god of resurrection. The Sphinx, facing Leo, and the pyramids, echoing Orion, may together embody the sacred union of Isis and Osiris, the eternal dance of sun and stars that brings forth life. Even more striking, some researchers have proposed that during specific moments of the year, the sunlight strikes the Sphinx and pyramids in perfect sequence, a visual symphony of light and shadow. It is as though the entire Giza plateau was built as a single astronomical device, a cosmic calendar marking not days, but ages. And what if the Sphinx's alignment to the stars is not just about the past, but about the future? Ancient Egyptians believed that the heavens were cyclical. What has been will be again. Perhaps the Sphinx's gaze toward Leo is a reminder, a countdown to another celestial era, when the stars will once again align as they did in the beginning. In that moment, they believed humanity would awaken, not through conquest or invention, but through remembrance. The Sphinx, ever patient, ever watching, might then fulfill its role as the herald of a new dawn. Its gaze is fixed, unblinking, eternal, not just upon the horizon, but upon the turning of the heavens themselves. If the Sphinx is indeed a map of the stars, then it may also be a prophecy carved in stone. When the Lion of Earth once more faces the Lion of Heaven, will the message it guards finally be revealed? Long before the first pharaoh wore his crown of gold, before hieroglyphs recorded the breath of kings, there may have been another people, one whose memory survives only in whispers. To the desert wind, to the stones of Giza, and to the eternal silence of the Sphinx. They are the builders before time, a civilization erased, yet faintly visible through the monuments they left behind. The question that haunts the Sphinx is not merely who built it, but who remembered enough to rebuild it. If the erosion marks and stellar alignments point to origins older than Egypt itself, then who carved the first lion into the bedrock of Giza? Could it be the echo of a world that perished, a civilization whose knowledge was inherited, not invented? Ancient texts across continents speak of a great age before the known history of mankind. The Egyptians called it Zep Tepi, the first time, the dawn of the gods. In Mesopotamia, it was the era of the Anunnaki. In Mesoamerica, the age of the sun gods. Plato called it the era of Atlantis. Each tradition points to an advanced civilization that guided early humanity, only to vanish in cataclysm, leaving behind fragments of wisdom scattered like stars across the earth. Could the Sphinx be one of those fragments, a surviving monument from a world that fell beneath the waves of time? When explorers journeyed to ancient temples across the Nile, they found something unusual: signs of stoneworking more precise and ancient than the surrounding hieroglyphs. Granite blocks polished like mirrors, cut so exact that even modern tools would struggle to replicate them. The earliest dynastic Egyptians, for all their genius, seemed to have inherited technology and geometry beyond their own development, as if they had found, and merely reactivated, the relics of their ancestors. Some researchers believe this lost civilization may have been global in reach. Traces of similar engineering appear in places as distant as Baalbek in Lebanon, Tiwanaku in Bolivia, and the sunken ruins of Yonaguni near Japan. Each site bears the same marks of megalithic mastery. Stones weighing hundreds of tons fitted together like puzzles, aligned to stars that guided ancient mariners. Could these distant cultures have shared a single source, a common teacher remembered in myth as the gods? The Sphinx may be the key that connects them all. Its lion form is not just a symbol of Egypt but of strength, guardianship, and solar power, a motif that appears across the world. In Mesopotamia, the Lamassu; in India, the Narasimha; in Mesoamerica, the jaguar gods, all guardians of sacred knowledge, all half-beast, half-divine. It is as if humanity, across every age, was remembering the same archetype: the guardian of truth, the watcher at the gate of the unknown. Modern archaeology confines human civilization to the last 6,000 years. But what if memory is older than carbon dating allows? In the sediments of the Nile, deep beneath the plateau, lie layers of human activity predating dynastic Egypt. Fossilized pollen, tools of uncertain origin, and geological clues hint that people once thrived there when the Sahara was still green. Who were they? Shepherds of the stars? Custodians of knowledge now forgotten? The possibility of a pre-dynastic civilization reshapes not only Egypt's story but humanity's. If a culture once existed capable of building the Sphinx before recorded time, it means civilization did not begin in Egypt, it reawakened there. The Sphinx, then, becomes a monument of remembrance, a marker placed by those who survived the world's first great forgetting. Some researchers point to similarities between Egyptian myths and those of other lost world traditions, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, and Hyperborea. Each speaks of a radiant age that ended suddenly, leaving behind survivors who preserved their wisdom in stone. Could it be that the builders of the Sphinx were the last architects of that vanished era, the ones who encoded their knowledge not in words, but in geometry, knowing that while language fades, proportions endure? When the Nile still ran young, perhaps the plateau of Giza was chosen as their message to the future, the meeting place of heaven and earth. There, they carved the Lion of Light, its eyes fixed on eternity, as if to say, "We were here. We remembered the stars." If the Sphinx truly stands as the last sentinel of that forgotten civilization, then perhaps the sands that bury its body are not the weight of time, but of deliberate concealment, a way of protecting what must one day be rediscovered. And if this is true, then the Sphinx is not just the oldest monument on Earth, it is the first memory of humanity itself. Could it be that the story of civilization did not begin with Egypt, but with the world that Egypt was built to remember? At first glance, the Great Sphinx seems like a simple fusion. A lion's body, a human face, carved from stone. But beneath that apparent simplicity lies an intricate system of symbolic mathematics, sacred geometry, and philosophical language older than writing itself. The Sphinx was never meant to be seen. It was meant to be read. In the world of the ancients, symbols were not decoration, they were technology. Each curve, each proportion, each angle encoded a fragment of cosmic truth. The builders of the Sphinx understood the universe as a living pattern, woven from harmony, proportion, and vibration. To them, the laws of nature were not separate from spirit. To carve a symbol into stone was to anchor a truth into the world. So what does the Sphinx say? Its very form is a message. The lion represents power, instinct, and the earth, the primal forces of matter. The human head represents consciousness, reason, and the heavens, the divine spark within the clay. Together, they embody the union of heaven and earth, the eternal alchemy between spirit and form. The Sphinx, therefore, is not a statue of a ruler. It is a symbol of the awakened being, the perfected human. Across ancient philosophies, this same message repeats. In Hermetic Egypt, man was called the microcosm, the small reflection of the great cosmos. The Sphinx embodies this principle. Its body is the physical realm, its face the divine mind. It lies halfway between the pyramids and the temples, halfway between heaven and desert, the midpoint between matter and consciousness. Even its posture speaks. Reclining yet alert, it mirrors the earth in repose but the mind in eternal vigilance. Its gaze faces east, toward the rising sun, the symbol of enlightenment. To the ancients, sunrise was not merely a moment in the day. It was a cosmic event, the rebirth of light from darkness. The Sphinx does not simply watch the dawn. It becomes the dawn. Architects and mathematicians who have studied the Sphinx's proportions note patterns that echo sacred geometry, the golden ratio, phi 1, 618, and relationships of pi and 432, numbers that appear in monuments across the world. The same numbers are encoded in the dimensions of the Great Pyramid nearby, suggesting the Sphinx and the pyramids were conceived as a unified code, an earthly reflection of celestial harmony. Look closer, and more mysteries unfold. The Sphinx's face, though eroded, reveals asymmetries that seem intentional, as if to remind us that perfection is not symmetry, but balance. Its missing nose, worn mouth, and weathered eyes may not be loss but design, the natural evolution of a symbol meant to age, to blend with the living earth, to become inseparable from the planet itself. Some esoteric traditions claim that the Sphinx embodies the four fixed signs of the zodiac: Taurus, the bull; Leo, the lion; Scorpio, the eagle; and Aquarius, the human. These are the same four creatures described in Ezekiel's vision and in the Book of Revelation, symbols of the elements: earth, fire, water, and air. In this reading, the Sphinx becomes the fifth element, spirit, the force that unites the four. In ancient Egypt, this synthesis was known as Ma'at, the principle of cosmic balance. To live in harmony with Ma'at was to walk in truth. To violate it was to fall into chaos. The Sphinx, carved immovable on the threshold of the desert, may have been a reminder, a guardian of balance between order and entropy, civilization and wilderness, light and shadow. But some believe its symbolism goes deeper still. The head of the Sphinx may once have worn a headdress embedded with crystal or gold, materials known for their conductivity and resonance. Were these decorative or were they functional, meant to amplify the monument's energy as part of a grand harmonic field stretching across the plateau? The ancients saw stone not as dead matter but as living memory. Every block, every carving, every angle was tuned like an instrument, designed to vibrate with the frequencies of the cosmos. Perhaps the Sphinx is more than a symbol. Perhaps it is a transmitter, a node in an ancient network of consciousness that once spanned the earth. From Stonehenge to Teotihuacan, from Angkor to Giza, monuments align with celestial points as if singing the same silent hymn. A hymn written not in words, but in form. If this is true, then the Sphinx is both message and messenger, the decoder and the code itself. And so, the mystery deepens. The Sphinx may not be asking us to uncover what lies beneath it, but what lies within it and within ourselves. For to read its code is to awaken the same harmony it represents. If the Sphinx encodes the secret of balance between heaven and earth, what might happen when humanity finally remembers how to read it? There are secrets written not in words or symbols, but in the scars of stone. The Sphinx, with its weathered body and worn face, carries those secrets like inscriptions left by time itself. While archaeologists have long studied its shape and meaning, it is the erosion upon its body that may whisper the most astonishing truth of all, that the Sphinx could be thousands of years older than Egypt's recorded history. At first glance, the wear on the Sphinx appears ordinary, the result of sand and wind grinding against limestone over millennia. Yet, in the 1990s, a handful of geologists began to see something different. Among them was Dr. Robert Schoch of Boston University, who noticed that the deep grooves and undulating patterns on the Sphinx's enclosure walls did not resemble wind erosion at all. They resembled the marks left by rain. Rain in the heart of the desert. To those who know Egypt's climate, the implication was staggering. The Giza Plateau has not seen sustained rainfall for at least 7,000 years, possibly closer to 9,000 or even 10,000. For such erosion to form, the Sphinx would have had to stand under heavy, persistent rain, meaning it must have already existed when the land was still fertile and green, when the Sahara was not yet a desert. Schoch's findings ignited controversy. Egyptologists insisted the Sphinx dated to Pharaoh Khufu's reign, around 2500 BCE. But the geological evidence pointed to an age closer to 10,000 BCE, or even earlier. This placed the monument's construction at the end of the last ice age, when the world's climate was dramatically shifting and ancient shorelines were being redrawn. If true, then the builders of the Sphinx were not Egyptians as we know them, but members of an earlier, forgotten civilization. Further studies strengthened the mystery. The Sphinx's head, though eroded, shows much less weathering than its body. This suggests it was recarved, possibly reshaped into the pharaonic face we see today from an older, larger head, perhaps that of a lion. The proportions support this. The head is unusually small compared to the vast body, as though it once belonged to a different form. Could this have been the original lion of Leo, the celestial guardian of the first epoch? Water erosion patterns also appear in the walls surrounding the Sphinx's enclosure, a kind of geological fingerprint that cannot be explained by mere sand abrasion. These vertical channels, smooth and rounded, reveal that torrents once flowed through the area. When combined with fossilized riverbeds found nearby, they hint that Giza once belonged to a lush, semi-tropical landscape. So, if the Sphinx predates Egypt's desert, who built it and why? Perhaps the answer lies in Earth's cyclical nature. The ancients may have witnessed cataclysmic changes at the end of the last ice age. Melting glaciers, rising seas, and violent shifts in climate. To them, building in stone was a way to speak beyond disaster, to ensure that knowledge would survive when memory failed. The Sphinx may thus be both monument and message, a geological time capsule reminding us that civilizations rise and fall with the rhythm of the planet itself. Some researchers have even proposed that the Sphinx's body, carved directly from bedrock, was intentionally placed within an ancient basin that once held water. Old depictions from the Temple of Isis show the Sphinx partially submerged, as if the monument had once been surrounded by a sacred lake. This suggests that it may not have been a tomb guardian at all, but a temple of regeneration, where water and stone united to represent the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The erosion, then, is not damage, it is data. Each groove and curve is a line in Earth's memory, describing storms long forgotten. And through these lines, the Sphinx speaks, reminding us that time is not linear, that what we call ancient may only be a chapter in an even older story. The stone does not lie. The water that once kissed its surface came from skies we have no record of. The rain that carved its body fell before the birth of writing, before the pyramids, before what we call civilization. So what if the Sphinx was not built to commemorate a pharaoh, but to commemorate an age? A world washed away by time and flood, a world remembered only by the marks left in stone. If the truth of the Sphinx is written in water, then perhaps it is not only a monument to the past, but a warning to the future. Could it be that the Sphinx, weathered by rain and time, is trying to remind us that history is not as dry as we think, that beneath the sands of Egypt, the memory of an age of water still sleeps? Across the ages, myths have whispered of a bridge between worlds, a link between humanity and the higher realms of understanding. At the center of these whispers stands the Great Sphinx, silent yet resonant, a guardian of what the ancients called the wisdom of the first time. What if the Sphinx is not only a monument of stone but a monument of mind, an encoded archive of knowledge that connects Egypt to other lost worlds? Atlantis, Lemuria, and the mystery schools that once taught the language of creation itself. For the priests of ancient Egypt, wisdom was not accumulated. It was remembered. They believed that all true knowledge originated from the gods, or from beings who came from the stars, the Neteru. Their temples were not merely places of worship but schools of initiation. The Sphinx was the first gate in that sacred education, the symbol of awakening from the sleep of forgetfulness. Only those who understood its language of proportion, sound, and light could pass beyond it into the mysteries of the pyramids. According to the Heliopolitan priests, the Sphinx was the image of Horus in the horizon, Heruemake. Horus was the god of consciousness, the rising sun of divine awareness. His mother, Isis, was said to have recovered the scattered pieces of her husband Osiris, the god of wisdom, and reassembled them, giving him life once again. In this myth, Isis is not merely a goddess. She is memory itself, the power that restores what has been lost. The Sphinx, gazing east, embodies this resurrection of light from darkness, of knowledge from amnesia. But what kind of knowledge was it guarding? Ancient initiates spoke of the hidden science, the secret understanding of how spirit shapes matter, how vibration gives birth to form. This knowledge, encoded in sacred geometry, harmonics, and astronomy, was said to have been inherited from a civilization that existed before the Great Flood, the civilization Plato called Atlantis. When that world was destroyed, its sages, the followers of Thoth, carried their wisdom to Egypt and inscribed it in enduring symbols, ensuring it would survive the next turning of the world. The emerald tablets of Thoth, though shrouded in legend, describe this transmission. I built the Great Pyramid, the voice of Thoth declares, and beneath it and beside it, I placed the secret records of Atlantis. Many have dismissed this as myth, but others see it as a clue, for the tablets describe not only architecture but the metaphysics of consciousness itself. The Sphinx, in this reading, is both sentinel and teacher, preserving the code that unites human thought with the divine pattern of the cosmos. And this is where the mystery deepens. If the Sphinx truly encodes knowledge from a lost world, that knowledge would not be written in words, but in relationships, the alignment of earth and sky, the ratios of stone and light, the harmonics of sound and vibration. Modern science is only now rediscovering what the ancients seemed to know intuitively. That frequency organizes matter, that sound can shape form, and that geometry is the language of the universe. The Sphinx, perhaps, was the ultimate expression of that truth, a harmonic monument designed to resonate with both the planet and the stars. Some esoteric traditions describe the Sphinx as a living library, its chambers tuned to specific frequencies that awaken states of higher perception. To meditate before it was to commune with the memory of the earth itself. The Atlanteans, according to legend, mastered this kind of knowledge. They understood that every structure, every being, emits a vibration that can be harmonized or dissonant. To live in harmony with the cosmos was to remember one's place in the great design. From this perspective, the Sphinx is not a relic of the past, but a teacher of the present. It does not shout its truth, it hums it, in the silence of the desert wind, waiting for consciousness to rise again to the level of those who built it. The ancient mystery schools that followed, in Egypt, in Greece, in Tibet, all traced their origins to the same moment of awakening symbolized by the Sphinx. Their purpose was not to worship, but to remember. They taught that knowledge was a form of light buried within the human soul, the same light the Sphinx watches for each morning as the sun ascends over the horizon. Could it be that the hall of records spoken of in legend is not beneath the Sphinx, but within us, an inner archive that can only be accessed through alignment, harmony, and remembrance? Perhaps that is the true hidden knowledge of the Sphinx, that the universe itself is conscious, and that by attuning ourselves to its rhythm, we rediscover what was never lost. The Sphinx remains patient, eternal, and knowing, as if waiting for humanity to awaken once more to its own origin. If the wisdom of Atlantis still sings through the Sphinx, are we listening closely enough to hear its song? In our time, the sands of Giza no longer conceal their secrets as easily as they once did. Modern science, with its lasers, satellites, and sensors that pierce solid stone, has begun to listen to the whispers beneath the desert. And what these new eyes have seen suggests that the story of the Sphinx is not yet finished. It is only beginning to reveal itself. Over the last few decades, technological advances have allowed researchers to scan beneath the Giza Plateau without disturbing the Earth. Using ground-penetrating radar, seismic tomography, and electromagnetic imaging, scientists have discovered anomalies, geometric voids, structured cavities, and unexplained density patterns surrounding the Sphinx. The most striking lies directly under its paws, the very place where legends placed the entrance to the so-called Hall of Records. In 1991, a joint team of researchers from the Shore Foundation and Egyptian Antiquities Organization conducted one of the first detailed geophysical surveys of the area. Their instruments detected a large, rectangular chamber approximately 30 feet below the surface, precisely aligned with the Sphinx's axis. Nearby, additional voids appeared, arranged in a pattern too regular to be natural. When the data were made public, they caused both excitement and alarm. Some Egyptologists dismissed the findings as natural fissures. Others quietly began to wonder. Then, in the early 2000s, a series of cosmic ray muon scans, similar to those used to peer inside the Great Pyramid, revealed even more anomalies beneath the Giza complex. Beneath the Sphinx enclosure, faint echoes of hidden structures appeared once again, empty space where there should have been solid rock. Still, permission to excavate these areas remains tightly restricted, and the desert's oldest guardian continues its silence. Meanwhile, new discoveries in Egypt's archives and satellite imagery have reignited debate. In 2017, researchers using NASA's Aster satellite identified faint outlines of buried structures extending beyond the Sphinx's enclosure, patterns suggesting ancient walls, paths, and possible foundations of temples long lost beneath the sand. The alignment of these features hints that the Sphinx may once have stood within a vast ceremonial complex, much older than the pyramids themselves. What purpose could such a complex have served? Some believe it functioned as an astronomical observatory, an open-air map of the heavens where priests studied the precession of the equinoxes. Others suggest it was a vibration field, a resonant network of limestone chambers tuned to amplify sound and energy, used for meditation, healing, or initiation rituals. Modern acoustical studies lend weight to this idea. Measurements around the Sphinx reveal unusual harmonic properties. Its enclosure, when struck by sound, resonates at specific frequencies associated with the musical scale used in ancient temples. The Sphinx, it seems, still sings, though only to those who know how to listen. In 2019, the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities confirmed new tunnels and passageways discovered beneath the plateau during restorations. Some run directly toward the Sphinx, their interiors sealed with masonry unlike that of later dynasties. Though official reports describe them as quarry tunnels, their precision and orientation suggest another function, one possibly connected to the Sphinx's foundation. And then there are the light anomalies. In recent decades, during equinox sunrises, photographers have captured beams of sunlight striking the Sphinx in ways that illuminate specific architectural points, as if triggering a celestial code. The play of light and shadow reveals geometric relationships with the Great Pyramid and the smaller satellite temples, hinting that the entire Giza complex was designed as one vast mechanism, a calendar of ages, a map of cycles. Each new discovery deepens the mystery instead of solving it. The more we see, the more we realize how much remains hidden, not only beneath the earth, but within the structure itself. Perhaps the ancients intended it that way. The Sphinx was never built to reveal its truth to force. It was built to respond to understanding. Even in our technological age, where radar replaces intuition and data replaces myth, the Sphinx remains beyond reach. It stands as if reminding us that there are limits to what machines can measure, that true discovery requires something deeper than science. Reverence. So, what waits in those silent chambers below? Are they merely empty hollows carved by nature? Or are they the vaults of a wisdom our civilization has not yet earned the right to reclaim? The Sphinx endures, calm beneath the satellites and scanners, its face worn by time but untouched in its purpose. When the final door beneath the Sphinx opens, whether by human hands or by the turning of time itself, will it reveal ancient stone or the mirror of our own awakening? The desert is patient. It buries, preserves, and reveals in its own rhythm, never too soon, never too late. For more than 10,000 years, the Great Sphinx has watched the slow unfolding of that rhythm. The birth of the Nile, the rise and fall of empires, the coming of new faiths, and the fading of old ones. And yet, through all of it, the Sphinx has remained, the one constant in a world that forgets. But what, truly, is it guarding beneath the sands of time? If we gather all the fragments, the geological clues, the astronomical alignments, the myths, the whispers of hidden chambers, a pattern begins to emerge. It is not the story of a monument, but of a message written not in words, but in endurance. Perhaps the Sphinx's greatest secret is not buried beneath its paws, but encoded in its very being. A reminder that knowledge, like stone, survives when civilizations do not. Its form, the lion and the man, represents the eternal marriage of matter and mind, strength and wisdom, earth and sky. It embodies the law of balance that underlies creation itself. To forget that balance is to lose the key to the cosmos. To remember it is to awaken again. Across millennia, those who studied the Sphinx saw in it a mirror of their own understanding. To the pharaohs, it was the face of divine kingship. To the Greeks, it was the riddle of existence. To the mystics, it was the keeper of hidden light. And to the scientists of today, it is a mystery written in limestone and time, an equation still unsolved. Each interpretation adds a layer, but none reach its center. The ancients believed that monuments like the Sphinx were alive, not in body, but in spirit. They were built as vessels for consciousness, designed to resonate with the mind of the earth itself. This was the purpose of sacred geometry, to create forms so harmonious that they could hold the vibration of truth. When the human mind and the form were in alignment, communication occurred, not through speech but through recognition. In that sense, the Sphinx is not merely an artifact. It is a memory field, a guardian of connection between the human spirit and the infinite. The silence is not absence, it is invitation. And perhaps that is the true hall of records, not a hidden library buried beneath stone, but a state of consciousness that the Sphinx awakens within us. When humanity reaches a certain threshold of awareness, the records will not be found. They will be remembered. The chamber beneath the Sphinx will open not with tools, but with understanding. As we stand before it today, we look into the eyes of something that has outlived everything we call history. And if we listen carefully, we can almost hear it breathe with the desert wind, a sound like distant thunder or the pulse of the earth itself. The Sphinx endures because it was never meant for a single age. It was built for all of them. Its gaze still points to the east, to the eternal sunrise, to the promise of renewal that no empire can erase. It does not speak because the answers it guards are not words but states of being. Its message is one that must be felt, not decoded. In a world obsessed with discovering, measuring, and owning, the Sphinx reminds us that some truths are meant to be kept, not hidden, but held sacred. Perhaps Egypt is still hiding something beneath its sands, not a chamber of stone, but the memory of humanity's first light. Perhaps what the Sphinx guards is not a secret from us, but a secret for us, waiting for the day when we are ready to see it clearly. And so, the great riddle continues. The lion of stone keeps watch as centuries pass like drifting clouds. The desert hums softly around it, as if reciting a prayer older than language. One day, when the stars return to their first positions and the horizon glows with a familiar light, perhaps the Sphinx will no longer need to guard its secret. Perhaps then, it will not watch the sunrise, it will become it. Until that day, it waits, and it watches. What if the true treasure of Egypt is not buried beneath the sands at all, but sleeping within us, waiting for the same dawn the Sphinx has awaited since the beginning of time?